Okay, so I think we will start, and the rest will join us as we go. So, welcome everyone again, and thank you for joining our webinar. This webinar is the third session and last of a three-part webinar series that we have been convening this whole month. And the webinar series has been a critical and necessary space where African feminists have gathered to reflect on what the future of work means and looks like for us in this digital age. And in today's session, we will broaden the conversations that we've been having on digitalisation, tech, and platformisation beyond the labor question. And while the exploitation of African labor remains central to these conversations, we also recognize that the digitalization of our world is reshaping how we live, how we relate, how we organize, and how we resist as feminists. So we are going to explore broader questions that African feminists must confront in this moment of cascading crises and some of the invisible costs of living in a digitized world, what that has meant on our bodies, on our psychic, on our emotional well-being, our relationships, our movements, and our capacity to dream of alternative futures. In this session as well, we will be launching the African Feminist Common Position on Decent and Dignified Work in the Platform Economy. And this common position has been a labor of love that we have been co-creating throughout all the sessions that we've been having. And it really outlines what an African feminist vision for the future of work is, particularly within the platform economy. So as we gather here today, I invite all of us not just to speak from the headspace of theory and policy, but from the headspace of lived experiences, activism, organizing, and our refusal to really be oppressed by the systems that continue to oppress us. And with me today is a lineup of amazing, amazing feminists who have been doing this work and continue to do this work. We have Rosebell Kagumire, who will be speaking about world building amidst world crumbling and what some of the things we need to confront and be thinking about as African feminists in a time when the world is seemingly falling apart. We also have Amisa Rashid, who will bring insights on the relationship between digital technology and mental health, highlighting the complexities on the impacts of our lives, our social interactions, and our well-being. We have Ghislaine from ITUC Africa, who will be speaking about how trade unions and workers have prepared and are organizing for the upcoming International Labour Conference. And we'll also have Ntike, who will be sharing a poem with us. So without further ado, I will invite Rosebell to join me here. And over to you, Rosebell.
Thank you, Joy. I don't know, where do I even start in this moment? I really start by observing that we are living in a very, very difficult moment, no matter where you are, no matter where you live. And if you haven't noticed the moment, it is soon coming because because the world is crumbling. You know, it's really crumbling. Like the systems of the world that have upheld all, whatever sector you might look at, are actually crumbling before us. And I know many of us might have seen them and thought, you know, this is the world we're building. There's no moving back, right? But I think this moment reminds us that progress or the world making is not linear. that it is all circular and comes in waves and connected shapes, but really not linear. So it's very important to recognize that, and to recognize that not only people's livelihoods are at stake, but there are many people caught up on our continent in wars who have lost so much. They've lost their lives. They have lost their communities. The dream of even having a community is so far from being imagined for many communities for many people at this moment, from Sudan to DRC, to people in Burkina Faso, to people in Mali, to people in Mozambique and Somalia, Ethiopia, Tigray, and many other regions in Ethiopia. Many African countries are really living under um, the threat of conflict, or in the middle of the conflict. And outside those conflict areas, we are seeing a looming, of course, democratic deficit, what they would call a democratic deficit, which would mean that, our liberation struggles have been really eroded, and in many African countries, and have been hijacked by few wealthy political elite, and who continue to serve themselves however they want. And they have made and the resistance movements in different countries uh, are ongoing, but under very difficult circumstances, whether it's in Kenya, Uganda, um, recently, as we see in Tanzania, the repression is really high. And many countries where there is maybe some political stability, we know that for many marginalized people, for women, LGBTQ plus communities are really living under fire. South Africa, the murder of women and the rape of women is still continuing. And we see femicide in Senegal, where I live. A planned sitting this Saturday on really brutal murders of women every day. So it's very important for us to bring ourselves to know where we are seated before we, sometimes when we're talking about these kind of conversations, we think we're just going to jump and talk about the digital and this and that. But we exist in this moment, we exist in different countries, in different communities that are facing very, very multi-layered challenges, and it's very important. And on top of that, we exist online and exist on these digital networks, which are not owned by us or even by our governments, and we don't have a public say in many of how they are governed, what they roll out, what they are testing on us, on our bodies, on our psyche. That sometimes what you know right now, if you ask someone, the perception of the world is very much shaped by what they are reading online, what they've had someone read online, and with very little fact checking of who actually is controlling the information machine that you wake up every day and log in. We really run a risk of not being able to put up the kind of resistances we need against the tech tech corporations working in line with our governments to really make our lives, unlivable. So it's very important to start with that kind of awareness in terms of like the platforms we own. We don't own them. The information, even when we put it, our data, once you put it, you no longer even control it. You don't know who is going to see it. We see many platforms. I was an early child adopter of these kind of platforms, and we saw from the start around early 2010s how we came to say the word, you just went viral. I don't think we thought we would see would see COVID because we're using viral in a very like positive way. But we saw the growth of these platforms, and for a moment, people thought it's just for the good, right? And it was mostly heavily on the fears that were there at the time were very much political for many political regimes, as we see social media being taken out, many platforms expanding, that's when we see a lot of political movements happening. We see a lot of political, social media, not inspired, but really social media playing an important tool in revolutions from Egypt, Tunisia, and other countries being very center. And I remember at that time, people knew it was only a matter of time. This kind of adoption comes to the rest of African countries, and I think we are almost at that level where the information that we get is really very critical. But what happens when that information, you can't control it? You don't control the data. I wanted to share with us what Professor Sylvia Tamale has written in Afrofeminism and decolonization, her book that is really, really a very important read. She really writes about digital colonization. And she says the current digital colonization, namely the extraction of digital data from Africans, is something that we must pay attention to. She said that digitization has become the new civilization mission and the latest framework for rationalizing the new mode of colonialism. Developing the broadband infrastructure is now equivalent to the construction of imperial railway in the 19th century in order to facilitate colonization of Africa. And this is not far-fetched. Of course, we are seeing it in real time. In the way platforms are evading accountability, in the way platforms are playing key roles in our everyday lives. We are seeing it, whether it's from work to the very life we live. I think Dr. Tamale says that digital colonization has been defined as the decentralized extraction and control of data from citizens, with or without their explicit consent, through communication networks developed and owned by Western tech companies. But I must say, like, at this point, it's not just Western companies. Everybody is in it to get their share. And she continues that companies like Facebook and Google are the 21st century's equivalent of the 19th century chartered companies, such as the Imperial British East African Company, the Royal Niger Company, or the German East African Company. All these worked to establish control of different parts of the continent and on behalf of the imperial state. So it's very important to know that even as this control for the continent, for the data, for our resources happens, it's also very important to always remember from the feminist lens that we know that the political economy has an impact on gender relations, but also it is a manifestation of how gender relations in communities work. So just as we see African men and women relations totally shaped by colonialism and new structures emerging, replacing old structures, and introducing new drivers of inequality. It's very important to know that as we take part in this digitization and massive colonial infrastructures that we don't have control over, that will impact basically on how we live, how we relate to each other, how we see each other, how do we fight together or against each other in many cases. So it's very important to highlight that. And in this case, we see that these technologies and mass rollouts are coming at a time where, for example, majority of African women and gender expansive people work in the informal sector. What does that mean when the informal sector, when this digitization is happening in a place where already people are not catered for by their public, they are not part of the public proper planning for the country planning in the country systems, where there is no social protection. Of course, we're going to see increased inequalities. We're going to see increased lack of protection and violence, whether it's that technology facilitated violence or really structural violence that you see, like the digital divide create, and how the very state can conduct business as if everybody's at the same pace or everybody has the same access. Yet we know that not everybody has the same access. We would use, of course, we have very good stories of how I made it online, see me, many, you'll find them. But the reality is that this kind of massive control on the platforms and digital technologies can only avail just a few people. You can be a shining example, but the question is that, can your community shine? Can your community be different? Can because of that, and in many ways not, because of the very inequalities at the heart of the technologies, and the inequalities that the technologies advance. And in this case, when you enter technologies like artificial intelligence, we already, I think last year, UNESCO put out a very good report on AI and bias, and looking at how AI is advancing gender inequalities and and racism. So for African people, for Black women and gender diverse people, it's very, very important to note that we need to keep our tabs on the development of AI, and how it's being rolled out, and in what ways it's affecting our lives. So the world might not be, the world out there might not be crumbling in your face, but actually your world can be crumbling, right? Depending on where you live. For example, we know that the AI and the algorithm systems have been deployed to really manipulate whether we can formulate even collectives to fight back. It's very important to note currently that if TikTok and other platforms, in terms of what we see, how we are formulating our own realities, is very much manipulated, and we've seen that this in attempts at online anti-vaccine campaigns. We have seen what we see as the growing rage industry. So whatever brings rage is promoted, and what is even a solution, or people having a conversation on how to advance, is usually buried. And we see this, that for example, last year there was a time, in just a few days, we saw the rise of anti-LGBTQ rhetoric and hate on Ethiopian TikTok, and this happened just in a few minutes, in a few hours. People who had no following just garnered 1 million followers in just a few hours, because they were inciting violence against LGBTQ Ethiopians. Um, and that rage went on for actually weeks, and the accounts were doing live TikTok on TikTok, and they were getting so many people calling for the killing of queer people, and that does not stay there. We saw in the same time that there were actual attacks in the country on people perceived to be LGBTQ. So if you're a woman and you're presenting, if you're an effeminate male, you are going to be attacked, or whatever someone uses as a yardstick to think that you are queer. There were attacks in the country, and that shows you how dangerous really algorithms can really be in our own lives as we speak. That you can be just minding your business, and before you know it, your life is not your life anymore. And there is not any ways governments or even ourselves can easily. It took a lot of calling, petitioning TikTok to even address these accounts, and the systems of getting that. There's not really justice in this system, because to even reach to a place to be heard is really, really difficult. Um, other campaigns we've seen, for example, we've seen a lot of anti-migrant campaigns in North Africa targeting African migrants, and with all kind of hate, and all this is abated by. It doesn't have to be a whole country that is doing this. It would be a few people made powerful by the gods of the algorithms, right? And currently, for example, we see another example, militarized agendas on the continent, which are being masked as liberation. I think if you've been online for the last few months, you've not missed any propaganda about Captain Traore of Burkina Faso. And you must ask yourself, many of us are coming from very repressed environments, repressive regimes. How come the stories from your country are not trending in terms of people to get that attention, right? It's very important to understand that our need for change, or even our hopelessness, can be sold online. In fact, companies sell your hope or your hope or your hopelessness, depending on how you look at it. You're clutching on need for change. That in so much, in doing that, that you're not able to step back and say, why am I seeing this every day? And asking yourself, what is the actual truth? You know, when every day you get a bullet, it's like you're on a news on a daily news update from Burkina Faso. But who is doing that? Who are doing the videos? Are they people from Burkina Faso doing the videos? Not likely. Do you know anybody from Burkina Faso to really fact check what is going on the ground? Not at all. So we see the machine, it's not just the algorithms, because people can pay actually for these videos. So whoever has the money in the world can manufacture a reality that you all on the continent in one go can really believe, you know. You can believe that Burkina Faso has rolled out the free education for all. You can today believe that Burkina Faso is giving its students, I don't know how much living allowance. But what you will not even bother to see is that Burkina Faso, like all African countries, just signed 1 year ago to be under IMF. That it is just like any other African country, struggling. And the fact that the person you think is a hero only controls 50% of the country. How does that become a hero? And the other 50% is controlled by militias and jihadists who are fighting the government. So it's very important to know that your reality of particularly of what you think of the world can be shaped so quickly and so violent and so like unceasing. And these are examples of how actually, and I've met people who are, of course, I respect, I think that they would know. And they're like, oh, what do you mean? I thought this is real. I'm like, yeah, but it's very important to ask yourself when you see repeated patterns, because there are certain patterns of how information is distributed that tells you there's somebody behind this. That somebody it's not normal that you wake up every day and this is what you read about. That can also be applied to the current, content that is targeting young men, the manosphere and the red pill movement. That it has been shown that when a young man of a certain age logs into TikTok, the first few videos they'll be shown would be the videos of all these toxic men online preaching against women, queer people. And that's how you see the multiplication of violence that we see both online and offline. So it's very important to take seriously the economics of who is paying for the information you're seeing, and how is your timeline being shaped not by you, but actually by machines and people that have paid for that. And that in itself threatens whether we can, if people control the way you see reality, they'll control, it will be a barrier to how you can organize, because you will spend so much time fighting against what actually is happening that is factual, than make real connections and solidarity with the people that urgently need it. And so we need to think about that. And also thinking globally, we need to take seriously on what is happening with America and other countries, and its impact on the continent in terms of the digital economies. Just last week, there was a report on how Elon Musk was using American state department to force African governments to take up his Starlink internet company. What does that mean for us? For a racist, misogynist, fascist man who has built this empire to come and take control of our internet. Just imagine. And they are forcing, they are really threatening African governments to take up Elon Musk's internet services. This happened in the Gambia, and it's not going to stop in the Gambia. It's already happening. So it's very important to know that our resistance movements, even where our work is best, yes, digital work, but it's very important to understand. It's very important to understand what really is at stake and what is evolving, and it can be very, very fast. So it's very important that part of our work that we see places like Nawi and other collectives really keeping everybody abreast of what is going on, because it can be really beyond us, and to understand the implications of what is being rolled out and how we are unprotected, and what can we do to continue to agitate for that protection, for laws and policies within our government, even when sometimes our governments are clueless, or they're complicit in many things that will be happening in terms of this big data. As the other emerging extraction issue that we see with big data and all these technologies is minerals. We saw the takeover by M23 of Eastern DRC. It was supported by Rwanda and many others to extract minerals of that country. And it's not something we can shy away from. And we saw how all the countries, once people are displaced every other month, people have never known peace because of the land having these kind of critical minerals that the technology machines need. So we see, when you see peace talks no longer taking place in Africa, the Rwanda process of DRC being eroded, taken to Qatar at first, and you would ask yourself, what is Qatar's interest in this? Qatar invests in a big airport in Rwanda on the DRC border. Why is there big airport at the DRC border? You would ask yourself, because minerals must take a very short route, right? So it's very important to see why we are seeing the things we are seeing. And then Qatar, of course, didn't succeed in that brokerage of the stocks. And then Americans swooped in, and under Trump, everything is almost on the display. And they sign a minerals deal. They say, okay, if you stop fighting, we can protect you. But what that means? We will not know. We'll wake up. American forces are in DRC, and this is all part of a orchestrated mission of colonization, because the rush for technology between the East and all these countries, between China and all these other countries, and America is pushing them to really come out of what was secret is no longer secret, and we are seeing it. And what are we doing about it? Because the conflict in DRC is not simply just about also Rwanda and DRC. It sits at the heart of the neoliberal machine and the rush for technology and minerals that we see. It's very, and all these conversations need to be included at every level. We can't just say, oh, we are just talking about war. We are not talking about the digital. This is all connected. And even as we talk about protecting digital workers, people in DRC, where all these digital platforms get all these minerals, cannot even live a decent life. So when we even that conversation, how do you imagine having that conversation in DRC, right? So it's very important that we are there, but our job is to connect this long loop and make the connections of exploitation. That if you're exploited and you're a worker in Kenya, exploited by TikTok, Meta, you're not just special. You're in the chain of exploitation of African labor and bodies and resources. So we must make all those connections today and invest in collectives that can make sense. This is a moment that calls for sense making, because violence can reach a level where you feel like it doesn't make sense, right? Because I think that is the job, that's also part of the job of the oppression, is that to make you feel so powerless, to make you so exhausted that you don't even know where to start in a day, right? Because when you wake up, there's fire everywhere. So we need to know that is the intention of the operation. So then we have to lay strategies. How do we fight together? Who has the skills to understand what we are talking about? Who has the skills to put together this kind of information when our media is already saturated? It depends. It's already either controlled by government or whatever is private now is also part of the loop of feeding information that is so quick to digest but so lacking substance. We are in this loop of like, we want quick information but we lack substance. We don't make connection, and we're in the midst of a different layers of technological wars, but we don't have the right platforms of fighting back. So I think our job is to really collectively rethink every day, how do we understand every day the political economy we are participating in, even as the neoliberal in the framework globally is crumbling. What does that mean for us? Is it good? Can we take the moment? Because when things are crumbling, sometimes it's the time to regroup for people on the margins. And I tell people that people who have been on the margins already have the tactics of survival, even if they are not listen to women, queer people. They have already been organizing for the revolution for a long time. So whether it is technology, because whether it is marginalization in the workplace, whether it is technology facilitated violence, when you see the advanced research on all these fields, we find it queer spaces, African feminist spaces have been advanced on answering these questions. And lastly, I wanted to highlight the work of Nanjala uh, Nanjala Nya, let me get the name.
Yeah, Bola.
Yes, thank you. No, it's very, very important because she's one of the leading voices on the digital and the governance and the colonization in our region. It's very important. She has a book, but also it's her last year she wrote a piece for in Feminist Africa that is looking at African feminisms as a method, as a methodology for African feminism in the digital age. So to understand, to read people who have been doing this work, who can help us analyze political issues and use the political theory, but in the digital age to understand even whether it's the shifting markets or the labor terrain, or even and how that is interconnected to our rights and already experiences that we have. So I'll stop there. Thank you so much. I hope to listen to the rest of the panelists build on that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Rosedale, for that really comprehensive and elaborate overview of what it is that we are going through. I know that it does look pretty dystopian, but it's important to know that there are people who have been really here before and have been fighting and continue to fight and will continue to fight all these systems that really want to kill us. And I know you spoke about the cost of convenience. A lot of us do like our convenience, we do like our apps, but what does that mean when the same apps are the ones that are fueling genocide and killing our people because they are extracting minerals, really for us to remain quote unquote convenient. So thank you so much for that and for laying the threads, for grounding the conversation, and for showing us how all these things are interconnected. So I will open it up to the floor for a few comments, questions. If anyone has anything to share, I have added the link to Nanjala's portfolio where all her books and the things she has written are. So you'll find it in the link. So if you have a question, please put your hand up. And Morris, you can help me check in case there's someone I can't see. Okay, so I think, Rosabel, you are quite clear. So thank you for the presentation. And on the conversations you've talked about rage and selling us hope and helplessness, I think it's a perfect segue into Amisa's presentation about what this really means for us, our emotional well-being, and really our general well-being as a people. So I will hand it over to you, Amisa.
Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me well. My name is Amisa. First of all, I was clapping when Rosbel finished. I actually forgot that I was a speaker because I was really listening into what she was saying. So thank you, Rosbel, for the amazing presentation. My name is Amisa Rashid. I am a mental health practitioner and neuropsychologist by profession, and I'm really into the work of decolonizing and Africanizing mental health and well-being. And when Joy called me to talk about this session, how can we decolonize time work political demand, but a mental health imperative, and how does that actually affect our daily living? So just like Rosebud currently, I know we are living in an age where digital technologies shape the tempos of our lives. They dictate the value of our labor and infiltrate most of our intimate spaces, especially for us African women, feminists, and gig workers navigating the digital economy or the platform. And we know that this is not just about work, it is about survival in a system that extracts so much from our minds, our bodies, and our time and our emotional landscape. So before we even look into the complexity, the complex relationship between digital technology, usually do a small 1-minute masterclass to just inform people of what mental health is. And I actually forgot for those who are VIs, visually challenges, who will be watching the recording. I'm wearing glasses, I'm dark skin. I'm a hijabi wearing an orange scarf, and my background is also white with a colorful African dress of red and white. So for inclusivity purposes. And now I can officially go back to my my talk. What is mental health? I usually do not come from the
Miss,
perspective that everybody. Uh-huh.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. I just wanted to share that your internet keeps breaking, so I'm not sure why that is.
Mhm. Now, can you see me?
We can see
Is
you,
it
but like
is
at
it
some
still
point
breaking?
it breaks, but it's okay. You can continue.
Man, I don't. I'm in Tanzania at one of the villages, so
It's okay. We'll pick what we can pick.
is it still that bad? Because I can change devices.
For now, it's okay.
It's okay. Okay. You can let me know when it's bad, and then I can think of what to do about it. Um, But just to continue, when we're talking about mental health, I do not come from the assumption that everybody understands what mental health is. So I usually give like a 1-minute masterclass on what well-being look like. So when you're talking about a human being, we know that the mind, body, and the soul is usually connected. So when you hear me talking about the relationship of well-being, you just know that your body, your mind, your physical well-being, your body and your soul are actually connected. And when you're talking about how the neoliberalism and capitalism are taking away from you, you know they're taking away from those three key elements. And then when you're talking about now the mind, we're talking about two crucial things. That is, when you're talking about mental health, you're talking about the mind and the brain. So the mind is the abstract concept that we cannot touch. That is our thoughts, what we are thinking about, that is our behaviors, and that is our feelings. And then the brain is the physical component in our skull. All these are also interconnected. So when you're talking about mental health, just know it has something to do with the brain, the physical component in your skull, and the brain and the component. So back to the complexities of digital technologies and mental health. We've realized that I'm not going to deny the fact that digital tools has opened for us a lot of opportunities when it comes to learning, organizing, income generation, and solidarity. Like we are here building solidarity online because of a digital tool. But also we are not going to deny the fact that it has brought profound mental health challenges, especially for those working in the platform or the gig economy. And there's actually a clear line between care, work, and survival. When you're talking about care, when you're talking about the work itself, when you're talking about survival, who determines what works for us and what doesn't work for us. We are also in that age whereby surveillance, hyperconnectivity, and as I was doing this research, I found out that anxiety is a type of mental illness, and there are hundreds of types of anxiety, and this is a new one called algorithmic anxiety, whereby it affects how, especially if you're a consumer, like you're using a tool, what the algorithm is going to bring for you, or for the person like a content moderator working behind the tool, the algorithmic anxiety comes from the point of you need to make sure that the algorithms are aligning. So if it does not work the way it's supposed to work, it actually affects the input of your work. So all these things have become very normalized, and not to forget the pressure to be constantly available, to perform professionalism on Zoom while hiding depression. Like even at this call, some of us may be going. Capitalism does not allow us to show that we are broken or we have mental health issues. Capitalism and neoliberalism has also bring in the hustle culture. And when you're talking about hustle culture, it picks up on the hustle content, whereby we are creating content not for the sake of people, but for the sake of profit. So it's also a hustle, like I need people to do this and do this and do this. So that is also the aspect whereby we need money more than the content that we are putting out there. We need to build a brand. We need to remain visible. And remember, we are supposed to do all that while caring on all the things that is happening in our lives, which actually takes a brutal toll on our well-being. And one quote that I liked while I was preparing this was, "We are exhausted by the illusion of flexibility." Like, I don't know if everybody feels the same. I personally feel like sleep, or even if you give me vacation, I'll come back and I'll be happening on in the world. The world, like Rosebell says, called on it, but we are also with what capitalism is putting on ability while trying to juggle all these million things at the same can say what is actually affecting us when it comes to flexibility. One of the organization of time, work, and leisure is what capitalism actually makes us fear
Hi,
poverty.
Amisa. Sorry. Hi, Amisa. Sorry to interject. Yeah, now it's becoming a bit
Oh,
more consistent in terms of breaking.
yo, what can I do now? Now, is it better, or I can step up
Now,
and look for better connectivity?
now it's okay, but someone suggesting maybe
Okay,
turning
so,
off the camera. So
okay, that will be better. I can do that, for as long
okay,
as we
all right.
don't lose them. Now you can hear me
Yes, we
clearly.
can. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so apologies for that again. The glitches of the technology that we are talking about, and just an example of how technology even affects our mental health. We are so used to being present that even if it is a technological hit, a technological hitch, most of the time we usually tend to attach it to our worth and productivity. So if it is a hitch that I do not have control with, I'll start blaming myself and saying this is probably my cause or something of the sort. So that was just a by the way. So as I was talking about poverty in relation to decolonization of time, work, and leisure, that in order for us to enjoy the time, work, and to have leisure, we have to have the free time to do so. But where does the free time come from when we are constantly working, when we are constantly trying to run away from poverty, and knowing that poverty is something that we do not even have our own metrics to measure what poverty looks for us. For a lot of African societies, before we were told what is the poverty index and all those kind of things, poverty for us was lack of community. Poverty for us was a lot of things, but capitalism has brought us that poverty for us is lack of materialistic things, and you have to do whatever you can in this planet to run away from poverty, while they control the definition of what poverty is, while they control who is supposed to be rich and who is supposed to be poor, and while they control also what is the magnitude of poverty. The digital economy and the digital workspace, we know, first of all, there are some types of poverties that takes away from us and actually affects our mental well-being. The first one is poverty of speech. As African feminists and workers, we are often unheard and mispresented when it comes to global text conversation. And that is where we have manuals where men are talking on our behalf when it comes to things affecting us. But because there is that poverty of speech, and even when we speak about digital violence or mental burnout, we are asked for evidence and not provided empathy. So what does that mean? It makes us go back and not be able to put ourselves out there as we are expected to be. Let's talk about the poverty of power in the digital economy. The poverty of power actually in the platforms, we know that decisions are made in boardrooms far removed from our context, and workers have no say in the wages, timelines, or terms and conditions of their working environment. So who holds the power? Who determines who is going to be affected and not? We have the poverty of leisure. Leisure is no longer restorative. It is often consumed by digital fatigue. Like every single day, you have to be on the digital platform. I like the idea of us detoxing and us deciding that I'm going to take a break, but as much as we try to, it's sustainable only for a bit because our world nowadays revolve around technology. So what does that mean? That means that we scroll instead of sleep. We do not get quality sleep. We just sleep, but we do not get that quality deep sleep. We message instead of trying to find ways to be mindful of even the people around us. And also, silence itself is colonized by notification. Like they're selling for us noise. You cannot stay silent for a while. That's why you have like notifications and everything. So do we have leisure, or are we in scarcity and in the aspect of lacking leisure? Then the last one, when you're talking about different types of poverties that actually comes to mind when you're in relation to digital economy and platforms, we have the poverty of life choices. Many women in our communities do not have the privilege to dream, to reimagine the future, to just like be there, the ability to reimagine here and now, what will the future look like for me? People are navigating wars, patriarchal backlash, economic hardship. The world is crumbling at the moment. And when in these current conditions that we're having, even the aspect of imagining becomes a radical act of survival. So I remember one of our Sudanese, we at Nivisha Foundation, I work with an organization called Nivisha Foundation. And one of the things that we are doing with the Sudanese community is providing mental health and psychosocial support for them. And one of them said that that statement usually stays to me until now. We cannot talk about healing when survival is not guaranteed. Yet we also cannot survive without spaces of healing. So you see, it's like the situation of egg and chicken, which come first? Which one can survive without the other? Like for the Sudanese community, women feminists who are going through the war that is happening in their country, they want healing, but where are the spaces for healing? And they cannot talk about healing also when survival is not guaranteed. Why am I healing when survival is not guaranteed? And all this is linked to the types of the poverty we've talked about. The poverty of life choices, the poverty of leisure. I'm not going to imagine somebody who is struggling with what is happening in Gaza or in Congo or in Sudan to start thinking about leisure or dreaming about the future when a lot of things is happening in their country at the same time. And now back to my real point of decolonization of time, work, and leisure. So again, neoliberalism and capitalism has made us believe that time is short. So they control the time, and that is why that even when you go to TikTok or a lot of social media avenues, they try to buy your attention because they are selling time and attention. And we as African, there is no African community that actually made us believe that time is limited. We know that time is sovereign, like time is unlimited. We can exist in a lot of timelines and dimensions because of that is what we have been brought on. But capitalism wants to break that up. It actually makes us believe that time is scarce, and yet we know that time is abundant like sunshine. Like every single day we know that sun will rise, we know that time is there. But because of the aspect of colonization and knowing that we are not going to colonize people the way they were colonized before, in Kenya people are still trying to be colonized the way we were colonized before, being sold to Arab countries. But now it is about colonizing our time and leisure, things that makes us more human. And they make us believe that, they make us also believe that we also need to work hard for this time. But remember what I said earlier on, they control what we do with our time. So when you're talking about decolonization of time, work, and leisure, we cannot talk about mental health and well-being when we know that the time is not ours. We are working on other people's timelines. The work we are doing is on other people's timelines as well. And they also determine what leisure looks like for us. So one thing about decolonizing time, they usually say, is how do we go back and reclaim rhythms of life? We know that colonial system has imposed industrial time on us, which has really fragmented indigenous communities and the communal support that we've been having in understanding of time. It has also disciplined our bodies into productivity over presence. Like what I said earlier on, our mind, body, and soul are connected. So when you're talking about time, as much as it is something that you cannot touch, we know that our body is paying for it because we have been disciplined into productivity over being present because of the digital technology. And when you're talking about the platform economy of gig workers, digital labor, and all these things, the fragmentation intensifies. So workers are on call but unpaid, and time again, remember the decolonization of time becomes unpredictable because there are people who determines what works for you when it comes to time and what time looks like for you. So how do we rethink about work, boundaries between work and rest? Because everything nowadays, digital economies, sorry, the digital platforms and technology is part of our daily lives. So how do we rethink rest and work at the same time? So the other thing is that as much as we know that all this is happening and we want to decolonize time and leisure, we know that we have to constantly remind ourselves that rest is resistance, leisure is political, and colonized labor histories denied rest to our bodies, our black bodies, our brown bodies, and enforcing the myth that rest must be earned. That is why a lot of us are struggling with burnout right now. That is why a lot of us are struggling with self-worth, because we've actually attached our self-worth to the amount of productivity that we are able to do. And this is actually linked to the hustle culture and knowing that we have to keep on doing this, and which actually perpetuates the injustices that happens in the digital platform. So as I'm finalizing it, how do we go about it. I know the world is going through a lot of issues at the moment, but we have each other. We have our communities. We have to have solidarities. We have to find ways to use feminism to navigate and resist in these difficult times. And that can look like creating safe spaces for survivors in the digital terrain. It can look like pushing for data justice and internet access as a feminist issue. Like it now becomes like a part of intersectionality when it comes to feminism. We can do that by recentering care work as revolutionary labor. So care work is not just care work, but it is revolutionary labor. We can use digital type of the state technology to work for us, because we can use art therapy to heal our communities. We can use different aspects of the same technology to do good for us, and making sure that making sure that feminist digital resistance is not just about the digital technology, but it is about storing our wholeness as communities. And when it comes to issues like the Zoom fatigue or the algorithmic anxieties that is happening, how can we also make sure that we are redefining what that looks for us? Like what works look for us, redefining that thin line of work, labor, survival, and exploitation looks for us. How can we make sure that performativity or productivity online does not breed guilt when we choose to rest? How do we make sure that the violence that comes with trolling women body, doxing, shadow banning, making a lot of things happening against women, how do we make sure that we are addressing it in such a way that it does not put us away from each other, but it brings us together? And how do we deal with the emotional toll of digital organizing? Because it gets hard, it gets tough. We also get the violence that comes with digital organizing for women and feminists and all those working in the digital platforms. So how are we going to show up, speak out, mobilize, fundraise, and strategize while managing our own lived experiences around mental health, our own healing, and knowing that burnout is actually deep and often silent, but it is something that as a community and solidarity, we can be able to talk about it. With that said, I'm actually really sorry about the technological glitch again, but I'm happy to have been able to facilitate, to do my presentation. And back to you, Joy, hoping that at least this last part were a little bit clearer than the other parts.
Thank you so much, Amisa. That was such a beautiful presentation. And thanks to the folks in tech who advised us to have the camera off, because that really made things clear and concise. And I think this was a really rich presentation. Things around rest as political resistance and an act of self-preservation are things that we need to take seriously as feminists. But without further ado, I will call on to the next speaker, Ghislaine. We will have a plenary session after Ghislaine's presentation. Is Ghislaine on the... Oh, yeah. So, Ghislaine, over to you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Joanita. I will speak French to balance. So,
Right. Everyone who, if you're an English speaker, please turn to the English channel. Below, you'll see a globe-like symbol with the words interpretation. You can switch to the English channel. Over to you, Ghislaine. Thank you.
merci beaucoup. Donc, Joanita, je suis le docteur Ghislaine Saizonou, épouse Broom. Je travaille au niveau continental en tant que responsable des programmes protection sociale et égalité au sein de l'organisation régionale africaine de la Confédération syndicale internationale, CSI Afrique. Il m'a été demandé par mes consoeurs d'essayer de parler donc de la campagne de la CSI Afrique. Il est temps de garantir des droits à tous, les travailleurs des plateformes, et d'aborder le travail que la CSI Afrique fait en matière de promotion de la justice de genre et de défense des droits des femmes et d'expliquer la position commune aujourd'hui adoptée par les organisations de la société civile panafricaine de féministes qui nous rassemblent aujourd'hui. Alors, d'entrée de jeu, je voudrais dire que nous sommes un mouvement syndical régional et nous travaillons donc sur les questions qui interpellent le travail décent. Et ce qui est dit aujourd'hui autour donc de la question des travailleurs et travailleuses sur les rentre dans l'agenda du travail de la CSI Afrique et plus particulièrement donc au niveau donc de nos axes stratégiques et ce pourquoi nous nous portons comme un mouvement qui fait de la défense des droits des travailleurs et travailleuses pour plus de justice sociale et dans un nouveau contrat social. Donc, on est tout à fait à l'aise autour de cette question-là. Nous sommes pour la justice sociale, nous sommes pour un nouveau contrat social. Et les plateformes de travail numérique qui se développent aujourd'hui dans les secteurs économiques vitaux, que sont les transports, le travail domestique, le travail des soins, au niveau donc des modérations de contenu, trouvent une réponse donc dans notre lutte vers la justice. Et pour nous, nous sommes tout à fait à l'aise parce que ces nouvelles formes de travail aujourd'hui sont marquées par la précarité, qui sont marquées par la violence, qui sont marquées donc par vraiment l'inégalité et l'injustice, et plus particulièrement concernant les femmes, les personnes en situation de handicap et également donc les personnes âgées, les travailleurs et travailleuses africaines sont dans un tournant avec l'économie des plateformes où nous nous trouvons vraiment à côté des perspectives féministes pour interagir, pour que nous ayons une intersectionnalité et une action panafricaine. Donc la CSC Afrique salue le document de position qui a été produit par donc les mouvements féministes panafricanistes. Donc cette refonte radicale de l'économie numérique rentre dans notre perspective de justice, dans notre perspective de justice numérique féministe, où nous espérons que tous les travailleurs, travailleuses des communautés, des sociétés civiles et du public vont reprendre le contrôle des technologies, des données, des plateformes, où les règles sont en train totalement d'être déconstruites. Et pour replacer l'humanité, le soin, la dignité, la justice sociale, l'écologie, au cœur donc du travail. Et donc le travail décent, c'est ce que nous souhaitons. Donc ensemble, aux côtés des organisations de la société civile, des féministes panafricaines, la CSI Afrique se sent vraiment à l'aise et soutient, je voudrais le dire, nous soutenons, nous sommes partie prenante du document de position qui a été produit, nous faisons cela nôtre et pour cela, nous sommes dans la logique de dire, au départ, on avait pensé que les plateformes numériques pouvaient stimuler la participation des femmes au marché du travail, mais nous avons vu que ça creuse plus l'inégalité vis-à-vis des femmes. Ça crée plus de classes et ça fait en sorte que les travailleuses deviennent 2 fois, 3 fois plus vulnérables parce que ces travailleurs et travailleuses n'ont pas d'alternative. Et aujourd'hui, les féministes africaines qui envisagent une économie des plateformes où les femmes, les personnes de diverses identités de genre, les communautés vont avoir accès à un travail décent, digne, fondée sur les droits et centrée sur l'humain trouve totalement notre assentiment. Et la CSI Afrique est une organisation qui reconnaît le mouvement féministe, qui reconnaît l'alternative féministe comme l'un des éléments clés pour aboutir au changement structurel en Afrique. Nous affirmons que nous sommes le premier mouvement en Afrique, le premier mouvement syndical régional à reconnaître le féminisme comme une théorie, un axe de travail pour un changement structurel. Et aujourd'hui, ce travail-là, à côté des mouvements panafricanistes ou féministes, a été payant parce que notre philosophie, notre vision du mouvement féministe, nous l'avons vendue au niveau international. Et je peux donc rassurer les féministes aujourd'hui que le document qui a été et les revendications les recommandations, les revendications qui s'y trouvent sont déjà portées par la CSI Afrique en leur nom, aux côtés des autres femmes, des autres travailleurs et travailleuses du monde entier, pour que très prochainement, à la conférence internationale du travail, nous puissions jouer notre rôle crucial. Les éléments qui se retrouvent dans ce document-là, la CSI Afrique a déjà fait sienne tous ces éléments-là pour que le travail au niveau des plateformes, nous arrivons donc au niveau de l'OIT à une convention, à une recommandation. Et les revendications féministes de protection du travail pour les femmes et les services des plateformes à domicile sont déjà pris en charge parce qu'au niveau de la CSI Afrique, nous parlons plutôt de protection sociale inclusive pour toutes, l'accès de tous les travailleurs des plateformes à la sécurité sociale, donc en lien avec l'application de la Convention 102, mais également la mise en œuvre du protocole africain de l'Union africaine pour que les normes minimales relatives aux 9 catégories soins médicaux, indemnités de maladie, allocations de chômage, prestations de vieillesse, prestations en cas d'accident de travail, tout cela soit aussi garanti pour les travailleurs et travailleuses des plateformes, en particulier les femmes, et qu'il y ait des cadres réglementaires qui garantissent la participation des plateformes numériques et des travailleurs au financement des systèmes de sécurité sociale. Nous souhaitons un travail décent, une transition vers l'emploi formel et la reconnaissance, je dis bien, la reconnaissance de l'économie sociale et solidaire. Pour cela, la CSI Afrique est en train de faire en sorte que les travailleurs et travailleuses des plateformes s'organisent, et plus particulièrement ces plateformes dominées par les femmes s'organisent en syndicats pour que les droits de ces personnes-là qui travaillent sur les plateformes numériques soient reconnus, respectés, réglementés. Et qu'au-delà de tout cela, l'économie sociale et solidaire soit reconnue comme un acteur clé pour la réalisation des droits de travail. Les droits fondamentaux au travail et la gouvernance algorithmique est un élément très important pour la CSI Afrique. Nous travaillons à organiser pour garantir le droit à la liberté d'association, le dialogue social, la reconnaissance effective du droit de négociation. Et la CSI a fait beaucoup de choses. Je vais vous donner un exemple. Nous veillons à cela. Si on prend l'exemple en Afrique du Sud, les gouvernements n'ont pas compris l'importance de garantir ces droits fondamentaux et pourquoi nous devons aller vers une convention au lieu d'aller vers une recommandation. Le lobby du mouvement syndical, aux côtés des organisations féministes, aux côtés des associations de la société civile, a fait que le gouvernement de l'Afrique du Sud aujourd'hui, qui penchait pour une recommandation sur la plateforme au niveau de l'OIT, est aujourd'hui prêt pour qu'on puisse aller vers un instrument juridique, un instrument général international qu'est la Convention. Et que toutes les informations sur les algorithmes, tous les processus décisionnels soient codés et que de manière transparente, donc le système ne reproduise plus aucun biais discriminatoire en matière de genre. La CSI Afrique travaille pour que dans la nouvelle recommandation, les conditions de travail décent, la santé et sécurité, qui est primordial, soit l'un des éléments qui soit contenu, y compris les principes de la Convention 190 sur la violence et le harcèlement. Et on travaille pour veiller à ce que les plateformes numériques fournissent gratuitement l'équipement nécessaire de travail aux travailleurs et travailleuses avec un salaire minimum et une prévention des risques physiques, psychologiques, technologiques découlant des systèmes de classification, d'attribution des tâches et de rémunération. Donc, on travaille pour responsabiliser les plateformes et les États dans la prévention et la réparation des risques par rapport à la Convention 155 et 177. Et la professionnalisation, la réglementation est également un élément important. Donc, la CSI, Afrique à côté de la CSI, a lancé une campagne mondiale pour que le travail sur les plateformes stimule la participation des femmes au marché du travail et que les inégalités qui sont creusées, les inégalités de genre qui sont creusées, puissent désormais disparaître avec la mise en œuvre d'une nouvelle convention sur les plateformes. Donc, l'organisation est très importante pour nous. C'est pour cela que la CSI Afrique, au mois de février, a d'abord organisé de manière sous-régionale un atelier pour faire comprendre la nécessité de cette organisation de défense des droits, surtout des femmes, dans l'esprit donc panafricanisme et dans l'esprit féministe, parce que le travail sur les plateformes est féminisé et le travail féminisé sur les plateformes reste invisible et il est effectué dans des espaces privés et négligé par les politiques. Donc, il faudra que nous réagissons en tant que organisation de droits des travailleurs et des travailleuses pour que la gestion algorithmique du travail qui est discriminatoire à l'égard des femmes cesse. Et ces droits-là, qui sont durement acquis, par exemple, congé de maternité, protection au travail, soins des enfants, et tout ça là ne soit pas érodé par les plateformes. Et en plus, donc, nous proposons qu'on laisse tomber les solutions de fortune. Donc, cette organisation que nous souhaitons au niveau des travailleurs des plateformes pour être leur propre porte-voix avec la complicité du mouvement syndical et également donc des structures, des organisations de la société panafricaniste qui sont derrière ce webinaire-là. Nous travaillerons donc ensemble pour que nous puissions atteindre cet objectif-là au mois de juin, c'est-à-dire dans moins de 3 jours. Mais il y a des précautions à prendre. Des précautions à prendre et c'est un appel que la CSI Afrique lance à chacun, à chacune aujourd'hui et à toutes les organisations qui seront présentes à Genève. La première chose, nous devons jouer notre rôle de veille et nous battre ensemble, nous organiser ensemble, travailler la main dans la main. Nous savons aujourd'hui que nous allons dans une maison tripartite. Les gouvernements, les employeurs, les travailleurs. Mais à côté, les organisations de la société civile sont observateurs, observatrices. Il ne faudra pas qu'on se lâche. Il va falloir qu'on travaille côte à côte, qu'on bouge côte à côte, que nous faisions des lobbies auprès de nos gouvernements qui sont réticents pour la Convention. Donc, il va falloir identifier, reconnaître les gouvernements qui sont réticents pour que les organisations de la société civile aussi vous fassiez le lobby auprès des représentants de ces structures, surtout ceux qui sont reconnus sur la liste de la CIT comme étant des délégués, pour que ces délégués gouvernementaux, ces délégués du monde du travail, ces délégués des employeurs restent dans la salle jusqu'à la fin, du matin jusqu'au soir. Ce qu'on constate, c'est que les Africains, quand ils viennent à l'OIT, déjà à midi, tous les Africains disparaissent. Et nous laissons la place aux Européens, aux Américains, qui discutent de ces conventions-là avec leur feeling américain et européen, avec des réalités qui ne sont pas conformes aux réalités africaines et qui sont, dans le général, ne nous prennent pas en compte. Donc, il y a ce problème de présence permanente des ONG, de la société civique, du monde du travail, dans la salle du matin jusqu'au soir, là où les décisions et les votes vont se faire éventuels. Il faut rester jusqu'au bout dans les débats plus que jamais aujourd'hui. Il faut s'apprêter avec le document de position qui a été conçu aujourd'hui. Nous sommes d'accord, nous sommes partie prenante. Donc, faire un lobby, un plaidoyer, distribuer ce document, le faire comprendre et les articles les paragraphes qui méritent d'être corrigés, il faut être prêt pour passer ces écrits-là aux ayants droit, ceux qui peuvent donc parler, porter ces recommandations, porter ces changements-là dans les commissions. Il faut travailler vraiment ensemble et non de manière isolée, en synergie comme une seule et même voix au niveau de l'OIT. Les choses peuvent changer. Il faut partager les succès parce que nous n'allons pas réinventer l'eau chaude. Il faut travailler à fond. Alors, je peux affirmer qu'au niveau du continent, nous sommes ensemble avec ce mouvement panafricaniste et nous avons travaillé. Nous travaillons à cette campagne-là aujourd'hui, la campagne sur le droit au niveau des plateformes numériques et au niveau de la CSI, nous avons des outils. Il suffit donc d'aller sur la plateforme de la CSI Afrique. Vous trouverez tout ce que nous avons mis en place comme outils pour faire donc cette sensibilisation, pour faire cette mobilisation mondiale et africaine autour du travail des plateformes et donc de l'économie numérique, où donc nous devons être au service des personnes et non du profit. Voilà ce que je voudrais partager avec vous. Et nous restons un mouvement féministe, syndical, parce que notre rôle est crucial. Nous serons là pour que le projet, la convention puisse être notre outil pour que nous puissions gagner cette bataille-là d'avoir une convention plutôt qu'une recommandation. Hello.
Thank you.
I'm ending.
Thank you,
I think that you
Ghislaine.
give me 10 minutes. I cannot go beyond. So I just try to fix it.
Thank you, Ghislaine, for sharing that overview of the work that ITUC Africa is doing, the important work that you're doing for pushing for labor justice and workers' justice. And we wish you all the best with the deliberations that are coming up. Very important things that you have told us to do, including having a position statement and positions ready. And I think that's a perfect segue into the next session that is really launching the African Feminist Common Position on decent and dignified work in the platform economy. So thank you so much. We will have a plenary session. If any folks want to share, give feedback, questions, you have some time now before we transition into the next session. Any questions? Going once? And from any of the presentations that were made? Okay, seeing that Amisa warned us on performative what? On Zoom performance, yeah, whatever you said, I will let folks if you don't have any questions, that's also okay. I will now transition into our session on launching the common position, and we will have a poem by Ntiki. Ntiki, are you on the call? Jessica, could you please help me confirm if Ntiki is on the call?
Hi, Joey. No, I can't see her just yet. Let me just prompt her again. But she's not on the call yet.
No, that's okay. I think whenever she's able to join, she can be able to join us. But now I can hand it over to you and Natalia to take us on.
Great, thank you. So from our end, it's not a presentation. We wanted to have a space for all of us to share what our thoughts are, what our reflections are from this session, what our hopes are, um, and what we're imagining basically with the platform economy, and also from all of the amazing interventions and presentations that we've had today so far. So we created this share wall. I'm sharing the link here in the chat, where you can basically just type in a message, or you can add in any image that you think represents how you are imagining our digital futures to look like, what your hopes are. You can just input whatever you feel. And then once everybody has inputted, we'll be able to save the image of all of our messages and all of our dreams and our hopes. And we'll be carrying that with us as we move along. So yes, if anybody has any challenges, please do let us know. There's what was this? It's like a bar on the left side, where you can either pick to draw or write, or use a text box or a sticky note, whatever is comfortable for you to input. And you don't have to worry about the text size, because everything is also going to be uh, adjusted for the final image that we have, because it's quite a large board. So imagine a very large board like the ones in class, or the ones that we use in meetings. So whatever size, we'll be able to adjust it afterwards. Yes. So please do let us know if you have any challenges, and we'll be able to um to support. Joey Nsiki just messaged and said she is now in the room.
Wow, okay. Okay, so maybe Jessica, if you could go through the instructions of the board one more time, and then
Okay.
we will have Nsiki do the poem as Fox, then yeah, do the thing.
All right. All right. So again, I will share the link again in the chat here, in case you've missed it. And the whole idea is for all of us to share what our dreams, our hopes are for the digital economy, what our messages are, speaking, imagining and speaking into, what our digital futures could look like, and also drawing from all of the amazing interventions that we've had today. I can share the screen to show what we have so far. So I can also see that there's some folks who have already managed to log in. Yes. So because it's a very large board, it's like a very large classroom whiteboard. Some of the text will look very small, but we're going to adjust everything so that everybody's message is we're able to read everything. And after we've all inputted, we'll be able to download the overall image with everybody's message, and we'll be able to share that and carry that with us. On the left here, you will see this little bar over here, where you can either draw, or you can use some shapes or lines or sticky notes or text boxes to write onto the board. You can also just click on the board directly for you to be able to write whatever your message is. Yeah, and that's it. If you have any challenges, please do let us know, and we'll be able to help. Joey, you are muted.
Wow. Thank you, Jessica. So now we can hand it to Nsiki.
Thank you all so much, and great apologies for jumping in late. I will be delivering this poem that has been featured in the explainer. It just portrays the struggles of a woman working as an e-hailing driver in the gig economy. and addresses the dangers she faces on the job and the lack of legal or institutional protection. Ultimately, it presents a powerful commentary, on the harsh realities faced by gig workers, especially women who are simply trying to survive and provide for their families. This one is called Nomzamo, Fending for Food. Mama is an e-hailing driver. She has no employment benefits. She can only get paid if she works. She cannot afford to be sick and miss out on work because she can only get paid if she works. She cannot afford to take time off to relax and spend time with her children because the industry is highly saturated with intense competition, and if she misses work, she will not get paid. Mama doesn't work regular shifts, so she doesn't really choose her flexibility with time. Mama is a gig worker. She's not protected at all, not by the law, not by her employer. Mama is an e-hailing driver. She's not safe on the roads. She picks up strangers who may be a threat to her. Mama is an e-hailing driver. She does not really have a voice because no one cares to listen. Mama is Nomzamo, and she is fending for food. Many thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Tiki. And I just put a comment in the chat that you are the one reading the poem. It's just that you used my name, my link to join. So it's my name that appears. And the link to the poem has been put in the chat. And as we, let's remove the pin here. Yeah, moment. Yes, and as we continue to populate the chat that Jessica shared, I will now share with you the common position that we are launching today. I have put the link in the chat, and like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, this has been a labor of love from across the board, African feminists, social justice advocates, workers who have been part of this webinar series have made tremendous input in shaping what an African feminist vision for the future of work and for decent and dignified work in the platform economy should look like. And we hope that the proposals, the ideas, the visions that we have put together help to shape the conversations that are going to be had from next week during the International Labour Conference that is happening. And we urge all of you to push these proposals forward. If you're going to travel to Geneva, have these as your pocketbook, as your handbook, as you're going for the negotiations, as you are entering rooms. I hope that you are able to re-echo what some of these visions have been. And thank you to all those who have been part of this process. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to the co-conveners. Thank you to the reviewers, the editors, everyone who has shown up in whichever shape or form. And please feel free to share the common position online, on social media. Yeah, let's try to change and use these algorithms for our favor. Without further ado, Jessica, I don't know if there's anything else on your end, but I think for now we are done.
All good from our end. Super excited to finally see the launch of the common position. Thanks so much, Joey.
All right, thank you, everyone. Please continue to populate the Padlet. Yes, Rosebell. Yes, Rosebell, you're muted.
No, it's all good, Joey. Thank you so much.
Oh, you were saying bye. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And we are at the end of our webinar. Yes. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.